¿Cómo estás? Bienvenido o bienvenida a este video. Hello and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be learning 100 Spanish verbs that you will use every day. Now you might not use them every day, but these are some of the most common and important verbs in the entire Spanish language. So without further ado, let's take a look. Number one, abrir, meaning to open. Oye, abre la ventana, por favor. Abre la ventana, por favor. Okay? Open the window, please. Acabar. Acabar is an interesting one. It can mean to finish, but it can also mean to have just done something. For example, acabo de hacer mi tarea. Acabo de hacer mi tarea. I just did my homework, or I recently finished my homework. Okay, so you kind of take on those two different meanings. Remember that in Spanish, context is king. Aceptar, to accept. Aceptar. Okay, it's not ac, it's as. Aceptar. Okay? Alcanzar, meaning to reach. This can also mean if you have enough. So for example, te alcanza. Do you have enough? Okay, te alcanza o necesitas más dinero. Okay? Aparecer, to appear. Aparecer, to appear. Ayudar. We use this one all the time. Ayudar. Ayúdame, por favor. Ayúdame, por favor. Help me, please. Buscar, to look for or to search for something. Estoy buscando mis llaves. Voy a buscar mis llaves. Okay? To look for, to search for. Caer, to fall. Caer, to fall. Now, the reason I put that there is because this could mean literally to fall, but you could also use it as in, I am falling for you. Estoy cayendo por ti. Okay? Cambiar, to change. Okay? Cambiar, to change. Comenzar, to begin. Comenzar, you could also translate that as to commence. Okay? Comenzar. Comprender, to comprehend. Okay? This is not necessarily to understand. Yes, you can use it like that, but a mistake I see people do is sometimes they'll use the verb comprender instead of entender, which would be to understand. Okay, so comprender, to comprehend, entender, to understand. Conocer, to know or to meet. This could also be to be familiar with something or someone. Conocer and saber, which means to know facts, are oftentimes confused. So, conocer, think of it as to be familiar with something. So, yo conozco esa canción. Yo conozco esa canción. I know that song. I'm familiar with that song. Or, sí, nos conocemos. Yeah, we know each other. We are familiar with each other. Nos conocemos. Conseguir. This is a tricky one. Conseguir meaning to get. Oye, cuando vas a la tienda, consígueme un sándwich. Get me a sandwich. Okay? Conseguir, to get. Now, in Spanish, we have different ways of saying to get. We have sacar, which in Mexico we use sacar. It's kind of to get something out. Oye, saca el lápiz de tu mochila. Sácalo. Like, get it out, for example. Or saca esos pensamientos de tu mente. Get those thoughts out of your head. But we also have, for example, agarrar here in Mexico, which would be like to get something or to grab something. Okay, but conseguir is like, hey, can you get me this at the store? That kind of idea. Considerar, to consider. Considerar. Contar. Okay, contar could be this, to count. Contar. It can also mean to tell. Voy a contarte una historia. I'm going to tell you a story. Convertir, to convert. Convertir, to convert. That's really important to know, especially if you're traveling, you need to convert a dollar amount. You can use that verb, convertir. Correr, to run. Correr, okay? Crear, crear. Estoy creando un proyecto. To create, crear. Now, notice how it's just a one letter difference here. Creer, to believe, creer. We can also use the verb creer as this idea of to think in English, okay? Yo creo que sí. I think so. This could also be translated as I believe so. They're interchangeable, okay? Cumplir, to achieve. Cumplir. Now, this is actually the verb that we use when talking about cumpleaños. Hoy es mi cumpleaños, okay? I'm achieving years, or I'm cumpliendo años, okay? Dar, to give. Oye, dame un momento, dame un segundo. Give me a moment, give me a second. Deber, this is a really weird one. Deber. Means basically in English to should or ought to, okay? Deberías de ir a ver esa película. Hey, you should go see that movie. Deberías de ir a ver esa película. Oye, no debes de decir eso. You shouldn't say that. No debes de decir eso. Okay? You shouldn't say that kind of idea. Deber, to should. Sounds weird, okay? I'm gonna come over here. Hopefully we have enough space. Okay? Decir, to tell. This can also mean to say. ¿Qué dijo? What did she say? Or, ¿qué dijiste? What did you say? No te entendí, no te escuché. ¿Qué dijiste? What did you say? Dejar. This can mean to leave or to allow. Okay? Déjame ver. Let me see. Let me see. Like, allow me to see. Or, dejé mi mochila en mi clase. I left my backpack in my class. Okay? So, to allow, to leave, to let. Descubrir, to discover. Descubrir, to discover. A whole new world. Okay? Dirigir, to direct. Dirígeme a la estación. Direct me to the station. Dirigir. Okay? Interesting verb there. Empezar, okay? Meaning to start. So remember when we saw the verb comenzar? Well, comenzar and empezar are synonyms. You can use them interchangeably, and they basically mean the same thing. To begin, to start, it's all the same. Encontrar, to find. Encontrar. Ya te encontré. Ya te encontré. I found you. Okay? Ya te encontré. Entender, like we talked about. Entender, to understand. Comprender, to comprehend. Entender. This is the verb that we'll use more often. Okay? Entrar, to enter. Entrar. Okay? Escribir. Yo escribí todo esto. Yo escribí todo esto. Okay? I wrote all of this. Escuchar. Tú estás escuchándome a mí. You are listening to me. Tú me estás escuchando. Esperar. Now, esperar can mean to hope or to wait. Typically, it's used as to wait. However, we will also use it as to hope. For example, espero que sí. I hope so. You can also use the phrase or the word ojalá, meaning hopefully. This actually comes from Arabic. If you think about it, here's Spain, and we have all of these different Arabic-speaking countries nearby. So throughout history, as the worlds kind of mingled, Spanish and Arabic mix a little bit. So words like azúcar, almohada, words like that come from Arabic. Same with ojalá, okay? Estar, meaning to be, not to be confused with ser, which also means to be. Remember, the easiest rule of thumb is that estar is for temporary things, oftentimes things like location, whereas ser is for permanent things like character traits, okay? Estar, to be. Estudiar, to study. Existir, to exist, very similar to English, existir. Explicar, yo te estoy explicando verbos comunes en español, okay? Explicar, to explain. Formar, to form. This could also be the idea of to create. Estamos formando oraciones. We are forming or creating sentences. Ganar. Ganar can mean to win, but it can also mean to earn or to make when it comes to money, okay? Él gana mucho dinero. He makes a lot of money. Or, ellas ganaron el partido. Ellas ganaron el partido. They won the game. Gustar, meaning to like or to please. Now, this is a very important verb to understand in Spanish, and never, ever, ever say me gusto to someone because it sounds weird. It sounds like you're saying I please myself. I have a whole lesson on that here on this channel and also on my website, SpanishLink.com, so you can check it out there. Okay, but this means to like or to please. Haber, this is an interesting verb, meaning to have. Not literally to have something, but for example, he ido a ese museo. He ido a ese museo. So he means I have. I have been to that museum. I don't have something, but I have been to that museum, okay? So the word like I, meaning there is or there are, is coming from the verb haber, or hubo, or había, habrá, things like that. Those are all coming from haber, meaning to have, okay? Hablar, to talk or to speak, hablar. Hacer, to do or to make. Estoy haciendo mi tarea. I'm doing my homework. Or estoy haciendo un proyecto. I'm making a project. Okay? Intentar, meaning to try or to attempt. Now we have many different ways to say try in Spanish. The three main ones are tratar, intentar, and probar. Probar is typically used when it comes to food, okay? Quiero probar ese plato. I want to try that dish. Tratar can mean the general idea of try in English. It can also mean to treat, like to treat a wound. And intentar is when you're trying to achieve something. You are attempting something, okay? Intentar. Ir, meaning to go. This is probably one of the most commonly used verbs in Spanish, okay? Ir, to go. Interesting fun fact for you, when you turn this verb into a reflexive, so now you have irse, what this actually means now to leave. Sometimes when we turn certain verbs into reflexives, their translations into English slightly change. So in this case, we're going from to go into to leave, irse. For example, ya me voy, I'm leaving now, okay? Or voy, I'm going or I'm coming, okay? Jugar, to play, jugar. Leer, to read, leer. Levantar, meaning to lift. Now, when levantar is a reflexive, it would mean to get up. You can also think of this as to pick up something, okay? But levantarse would be to get up. I'm going to stand up, okay? Llamar, to call, llamar. Now you may have heard the phrase, yo me llamo Nate. My name is Nate. Well, that would literally translate into I call myself Nate, okay? Llamar. Llegar, to arrive, llegar. Llevar, slight difference. This means llevar, to take, but can also mean to wear. I typically don't use the verb llevar when it comes to wear something. I typically use the verb usar, meaning to use, but llevar is this idea of to take. Oye, llévame ahí. Llévame ahí. Take me there. Llévame ahí. Lograr, to accomplish, to accomplish. Ya lo logré. I accomplished it. I did it. Mantener, to maintain. Mantener, to maintain. Mirar, to look or to watch. Now, the difference between mirar and ver can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Typically here in Mexico, we'll use the verb ver when we're talking about, hey, like I'm seeing you or I'm watching a series. Estoy viendo la serie. I'm watching the series. Whereas mirar is typically used here in Mexico as like, oye, mira. Hey, look, check that out. Mira. Okay? You can use it for watching shows and things like that, but it's more common that we'll actually use ver. Now, I have some friends from Guatemala, and what I've noticed is that oftentimes they will use the verb mirar more than they will use the verb ver. So for example, if I want to say, oye, hoy te ves bien. Hey, you look good today. Someone from Guatemala would potentially say, oye, hoy te miras bien. Hey, today you look good, instead of saying te ves. All right? Morir, to die. Morir. Nacer, to be born. Nacer. Necesitar, to need. Te necesito, I need you. Necesitar, to need. Ocurrir, to occur, ocurrir. Okay, number 59, ofrecer, to offer, ofrecer. Oír, oír, to hear. Now, the reason I put emphasis here, or I underline this, is because we have that little accent mark, okay? So we don't say oír, we say oír, okay? Now, typically in words in Spanish, the emphasis naturally falls on the second to last vowel in a word, which in this case would be the O. However, we're putting the accent there, and now we're changing that pronunciation to oír, okay? Pagar, to pay. Oye, págame, ya. Pay me now. Pagar, to pay. Parar, okay? Parar can mean to stop, but it can also mean to stand up. For example, oye, párate, ya, párate, stand up, párate. Or, para, ¿qué haces? Stop, what are you doing? Para, okay? Parecer, to seem. Love this word. Parecer. For example, me parece buena idea. It seems like a good idea to me. Me parece buena idea. Okay? Partir, to leave. Partir, to leave. Pasar, to pass or to happen. Typically, we'll use it as to happen. So, for example, oye, ¿qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? What happened? Or, ¿qué pasa? What's up? What's happening? ¿Qué pasa? Pedir, to ask for or to order. Don't confuse this with preguntar, which is to ask a question. Whereas if we say pedir, we are asking for something. When we preguntar algo, we're not necessarily asking for something. We could be, but with pedir, you are asking for something. So typically we use this for food, right? Quiero pedir un taco. I want to order one taco. Quiero pedir un taco. I want to ask for one taco. Perder, to lose. Perder, to lose. Permitir, to permit or to allow. Permíteme un segundo. That's like, just allow me a moment. Give me a moment, please. Permíteme. One moment. Poder, to be able to or to can, which of course doesn't really make sense. Okay, but ¿puedes repetir eso, por favor? Can you repeat that, please? No puedo. I can't. No puedo. I cannot. I am not able to. Okay? Poner, to put. Voy a poner la mesa. That's an example we use. I am going to put the table, or I'm going to set the table. Preguntar, to ask. Okay? Hazme una pregunta. Ask me a question. Presentar, to present. This can also mean when you're introducing yourself to someone. Present. Déjame presentarme. Producir, to produce. Producir, to produce. Quedar, meaning to stay. Okay, we often will use this as a reflexive. For example, me voy a quedar en tu casa. I am going to stay in your house. Me voy a quedar en tu casa. This can also mean the idea of, hey, I'm going to keep it. Me lo voy a quedar. I'm going to keep it. Querer, meaning to want. It can also mean to love. Te quiero, right? You've heard that one before. Te quiero, I love you. Literally, you could think of that as I want you, which sounds a little bit different. However, typically, querer is here and amar is here. So, te quiero here, te amo here. A little bit stronger, okay? Realizar. This means to realize or to achieve something. Realicé mis sueños. I realized my dreams, or I accomplished, I achieved my dreams. Recibir, to receive. Recibir. Reconocer. Reconocer, to recognize. To recognize. Resultar, to turn out. That's a good verb. Resultar, to turn out. Resulta que él sí era mi papá. Turns out he was my dad. Okay? Resultar. Don't know why I thought of that. Anyways, I don't know if you've noticed, also my words are kind of going up here. I'm a positive guy. That's how I'm going to interpret that. Okay? Saber, meaning to know. It can also mean to find out. So when we use this in the preterite tense, yo supe, that would mean I found out. Okay? Saber, meaning to know. Sacar, to get or to get out, okay? Like we talked about. Saca tu lápiz de la mochila. Get your pencil out of the backpack. Salir, to go out, okay? Voy a salir de la casa. I'm going to leave or go out of the house. You can also use this when talking about I am going out with someone. Ella y yo estamos saliendo. Her and I are going out. Seguir, to follow. This could be to literally follow someone or to follow someone on Instagram. Seguir, okay? Follow me, Spanish with Nate. Sentir, to feel. Sentir. Ser, to be. And remember, this is the permanent version of to be, okay? Yo soy Nate. That is permanent and that is a fact. That's not going to change. Yo soy Nate. Servir, to serve. To serve. Voy a servirte comida. Servir. Suponer. This can mean to suppose, can also mean to guess. For example, yo supongo. I guess, or I suppose so, right? Yeah, I suppose so, okay? Don't get that confused with adivinar, which is literally to guess something about someone or something. Tener, to have. That is to literally have something, okay? Tengo este marcador, for example, okay? Terminar, to finish or to be done with something, okay? Terminé la tarea. I finished the homework. Tocar, to touch or to play, okay? Tocar. Tomar, okay? This could be like to take an examen. I'm mixing Spanish and English. Voy a tomar el examen. I'm going to take the test, or I'm going to take the exam. But we can also use it as to drink. Voy a tomar agua. Okay, that's used here in Latin America. It's used a lot in Mexico. Trabajar. Yo estoy trabajando, técnicamente. To work. Trabajar. Traer. To bring. Yo traje un pastel. Hey, I brought a cake. Tratar, okay? Like I said, this could mean to try. It can also mean to treat, like to treat a wound. Utilizar, to utilize. You could also think of that as to use. Venir, to come. Voy a venir a tu fiesta. I'm going to come to your party. Ver, to see, right? Like we talked about. To see, also to watch. Vivir, to live. Yo vivo en México. I live in Mexico. Volver, to return. Volver, okay? We also have the verb devolver, which means to return, but that is for an item. If we're talking about us or a person, we will say volver, to return. And finally, votar, to vote. Bueno, muchas gracias por ver este video. If you'd like to learn more Spanish from me, you can check out my free course at SpanishLink.com. I also have my full Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy on there and also one-on-one tutoring lessons if you are interested. Bueno, muchas gracias por ver este video. Espero que hayas aprendido algo nuevo y espero que tengas muy buen día. Hasta luego.